Hello, I'm Herdiana Hakim. I'm originally from Jakarta, Indonesia. Currently, I'm doing PhD in Children's Literature and Literacies at the University of Glasgow. It's a pleasure for me to be able to participate in the Chat and the Book Conference, albeit virtually. I'll be talking about some children's books from Indonesia, particularly children's books that are used as promotion for anti-corruption messages. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Let me share my slide. So the title of my presentation is Transforming Future Citizens, Agency in Anti-Corruption Stories. As the title says, my presentation will discuss my examination of several children's books that promote anti-corruption messages. A little context here. So after Indonesia's independence in 1945, unfortunately, corruption has been part of Indonesia's history, particularly under the authoritarian regime that lasted for 32 years from 1966 to 1998. So since 2001, when we are still in a new democracy, Indonesia has embraced direct presidential elections and a handful of other laws to ensure that we minimize corruptions. We also established a special agency for corruption called the Anti-Corruption Commission, or KPK. So from now on, I'm going to refer to it as KPK. So this agency was established in 2003, and it is responsible for investigating politicians, public officials, or even the police regarding corruptions. And the photo here is the KPK building located in Jakarta. Yeah, as I've said before, unfortunately, corruption is still rampant in the archipelago. This is, I quote a study here from Gabriel Lele, a recent study that highlights how corruption is still very much a part of Indonesian government and businesses. So there's also a growing distrust from the public towards the government. From Transparency International, our country ranks number 102 among 180 countries in the world regarding corruption perception index. So amid all this, a handful of corruption prevention programs were launched by KPK, and most of them target young audience, as you can see from the photos here. There's animation, there's music, there's comic strip, there's even a musical theater, all embedded with anti-corruption messages. The public do their parts as well, especially the creative teachers that make these board games or storytelling projects with anti-corruption messages. So it's a whole country's project, really. Now, this is a big part of the anti-corruption project in Indonesia, the children's books. They're a big part of the campaign. Since 2016, in fact, more than 160 titles, children's book titles, promoting anti-corruption messages were published. This is actually a collaboration between KPK and 30 publishers in the country, both mainstream and independent. These books cover a wide range of genre and formats. You can easily identify these books from the eye-catching red sticker there that says Berani Jujur Hebat, or we can translate that into Be Brave to Be Honest. So that's the main message promoted by KPK, as you can see in the red stickers. The stories themselves are quite varied. Moral fables, fantasy, realistic stories, comic. So yeah, I think it depends on the publishers as well. So out of this 160 titles, I choose just a handful of them. So my corpus consists of 16 picture books. They were selected for, first and foremost, literary qualities, illustrations, and also accessibility. So these books that become my corpus, they can all be downloaded freely from KPK's website. So I imagine teacher in rural areas in Indonesia, they can have access to these books as well without having to buy the print books. My examination focuses on the adult-child power dynamics and drawing on Clementine Bouvet arguments in her book, The Mighty Child. I'm very much interested in her argument in that book because she focuses on the fundamental foundational question in children's literature, which is adult-child power tension. I quote her here, for at the heart of the didactic discourse of contemporary children's literature, even at its most didactic, lies a tension of powers, of time-bound powers, between the authoritative adult and its desired addressee, the mighty child. And we're going to see that in the next few slides. So this is my corpus, the first part. So in total, there are 16 picture books. These are the first 8. These first 8 are all published by Litara, an independent publisher that is known for their child-centered approach and focus on Indonesian culture. So these 8 books have the same characters. They are a group of personified animals. There's a beetle, there's a cat, there's a bunny, there's a bear. There are also guest characters in the forms of Indonesian endemic animals like Modo, the Komodo dragon, Tenten, the binturong, a beer cat, and some of our birds of paradise are also present in these books. And this is the other 8 of the 16 picture books. These other 8 are published by a different publisher. It's Profisi Education. And these 8 books are written by teachers who I imagine had to follow a selection process. And they also followed a writing workshop commissioned by KPK. And the results are these 8 picture books. So this corpus, this 8 books here and the previous 8 books you see in the previous slide, they do not talk about corruptions per se. Yeah. So instead, the main premise is a moral dilemma faced by the child characters as they go about their daily lives. The big theme is, you can guess from the red sticker, honesty. So let's see then, what's the big theme in this picture books. I think this represents the other books as well. So here's a spread from one book that shows how a moral dilemma comes about. A child character makes a mistake, either unintentionally or intentionally. The boy here wants to help his father prepare for a batik exhibition and accidentally messes up with the batik cloth because he hasn't learned how to do it properly yet. Batik, by the way, is a traditional Indonesian cloth made of wax resist dyeing technique. In another book, another child faces another moral dilemma um, when he receives an extra change after being sent shopping by his mother. And without even thinking, he spent the money to buy ice cream. Another sample of the moral dilemma is another child character who accidentally breaks his friend's stilt when borrowing it, quote unquote, to practice for a festival. So all the dilemmas in the stories are quite similar. After making mistakes, what should the child characters do? All child characters in the corpus, they end up making the right decisions. They own up to their mistakes and apologize, whether the wrongdoing is intentional or not. What are presented as corrupt behavior? What is the interpretation of corrupt behavior in these children's books? There are two strands. The first one is taking someone else's belongings. That's the interpretation of corrupt behavior. Some of the stories show that the child characters, they take things which do not belong to them. Although, interestingly, most are unintentional, accidental even, which is a contrary to the corruption itself, which is not only planned but also systematically organized. Whilst in this books, it's mostly just some accidental borrowing, and for the most part, the children are are usually told that if you ask nicely, you can have it, and that's what they do in the end. They come up to the person who owns the thing, and then they ask nicely, and they are given that object. Now, interestingly, the only picture book in the corpus that demonstrates an act of intentional stealing is not done by a child character or a child, but by adult. Well, adult representation, at least, in the form of a mother hen. So the mother hen here, in this spread, she takes some of the mother duck's eggs. When the eggs hatch and out come some ducklings, mother hen still treats them like her children until the ducklings follow mother duck swim in the river. Mother hen then apologizes for stealing mother duck's eggs. So this is actually the only story out of those 16 picture books that shows intentional stealing, and it's actually done by a doll, not by a child. The second strand of interpretation of corrupt behavior in these books is dishonesty. Yeah, well, included in here is cheating, lying, cheating in school tasks, cheating in games, traditional games. Yeah, so much like taking someone else's belonging, the child characters who commit dishonesty end up confessing to their mistakes and taking responsibility. Like you see on the spread on the left, there's a schoolboy there coming up to the front of his class and admitting that he has been cheating. He admits to his teacher there. And there's also a little girl on the spread on the right from another picture book that apologizes to her mother for having lied to her. Yeah. So those are the two strands, the two big themes in these picture books. First is taking someone else's belongings, although unintentionally borrowing, and then the other one is being dishonest. But there's also other things besides these two that are not really related to either corruption or honesty, dishonesty, which I assume well, they deviate from the didactic path. Let me show you. So this book, for example, there's no reference in this book either to corrupt behaviors, bad behaviors, naughtiness. Instead, the whole story is about two children, pictured here, learning how to make a piggy bank from clay. Yes, in Indonesia, by the way, it's a chicken piggy bank instead of a pig piggy bank. It's a chicken piggy bank that is popular. And that's what the whole story is about. There's no big words about honest, dishonesty, or about returning things that you have borrowed without asking first. So it's just this, actually, just children learning how to make piggy bank. And then there's another story that is more funny and silly rather than didactic. The premise is a child, a bunny, child bunny, trying to suppress some excess gas in his tummy on a field trip because he doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of his friends. We all know how this feels like, but the power is just too strong that, yeah, he has to let go. So it's just funny. And the story itself later on focuses on the field trip as the group or the school children arrive at a national park, and they learn about another unpleasant smell of the national flower of our stinky corpse lily. Yeah, so nothing here about corruption, quote unquote. And this is another sample of the books that deviate from the didactic anti-corruption message a bit, maybe. This one focuses on our infamous children's song from a fable as well, back home, about a mouse deer who likes to eat cucumber. And I think this picture book is like a wink to the mouse deer tale, because that tale has been accused as responsible for encouraging corruption or corrupt behavior. Because not only in the tale, the mouse deer steals the cucumber, but also gets away with it. So in this book, a high-speed chase takes place inside various Indonesian tribal patterns. So it becomes an adventure as they move from one painting to another painting with different patterns, beautiful patterns. So this book takes a fresh look of the tale, and as the characters chase the mouse deer, in the end, they manage to catch the mouse deer. And then again, just like the other books in the corpus, the mouse deer reveals that he actually it's not stealing that he's doing. He's just borrowing. He's just borrowing the cucumber. And then he's told that if you ask nicely, you can have the cucumber. And in the end, the mouse deer is rewarded by a bag full of cucumber. Yeah. So let me go back to what I'm interested in focusing, which is the children adults dynamics. So in this 16 picture books in my corpus, the approach is indeed different from most anti-corruption children's books commissioned by KPK from the other books that I don't include in my corpus. I think the most distinguishing feature in the corpus is the child-centered perspective. That's what noticeable when you see these books against when you read them against the other books. So the children take center stage with very few adults present, and the adults have very minor presence and roles as well. And in facing moral dilemma, the children do not turn to the adults for answers. Instead, they rely on their own conscience, which acts as this child character's guide when they are making decisions. And they are left to decide for themselves. So the adults are mostly, if they are present at all in the stories, they mostly just like the cat mother in this book, just a bit far at the back in the background, just looking. But then the child, with his conscience, feels guilty. This is the child that takes the extra change and buys ice cream. He feels guilty, and he feels that his mother is looking at him. This is also another sample of the power of the child conscience. Readers can see here from the illustration, there's a determination forming up in the boy's face before he finally decides that he has to own up to his wrongdoing, that he has been cheating in his tests. And this is another form of conscience, which enters a child's nightmare, the ice cream boy. So he has a bad dream, that there are so many ice cream monsters chasing him. Yeah, isn't this the conscience that is missing in the corrupt adults? Using their conscience, the children then take their own decision to make things right. either to own up to their wrongdoing or to try bringing solution to fix the situation. So the sample here is the boy who takes the extra change to buy ice cream, to come back to him again. He knows in the end what he has to do. So the words say, I translated the words from Indonesian to English. Ken, the boy's name, Ken now knows he has to return the money. And then he goes running to get the money from his piggy bank, the chicken piggy bank. So he is the one who decides how to fix it, how to remedy the situation. So it comes from the child. Another example of the solution coming from the child. This one is the boy who messes up with the batik cloth. So he comes up with a solution to fix the mess. He has to learn how to create batik properly. So that's what he does. In addition to studying in school and playing with friends, he manages to study how to, he manages to learn how to create a batik cloth. And in the end, he can save the day. So these are just my main points before I end my presentation. So from Bouvet's The Mighty Child, what I take is that children can be mighty in didactic texts, especially because they have time. They are the owner of a longer future in which to act, Bouvet says. She even uses the term currency to refer to time that children have and adults don't. For me, this helps reframe perspective that children have no agency in didactic children's literature. They can, yeah. And also sometimes it's the adults, maybe subconscious, that come up. For example, in this corpus, the adults being on the sideline, knowing that it's actually their mess. They are the ones who are corrupt. So what's also important in seeing a child as mighty in children's literature is to see them as being, not only as becoming, not only as humans in the making, but human beings already in the present. And this is coming from the sociology of childhood, uh, from James and Prout here, I quote, "What is vital is to focus on children not only as proto-adults, future beings, but also on children as beings in the present." So in terms of citizens, they're not only future citizens, they're also present citizens. They know about all this corruption. They hear about this every day. Yeah, so when addressing them in these books, it's interesting to see how the adults seem to reveal their own anxiety. So in the corpus, the adults' minor roles, minor presence, for me, I think it reveals their awareness of the irony of these books. So these are didactic texts, these are didactic literature, explicitly aimed to deliver moral lessons to children, anti-corruption lessons, to remedy the immoral corruption conducted by adults, not by the children themselves. That's why the minor presence and roles of the adults in these books is fascinating to me. Maybe you're wondering, it's not that rare to find that kind of thing in Western children's books. But in Indonesia, most of the children's books, they still give major authoritative roles to the adults. So the adults play quite significant parts in children's literature, and presence as well, where children turn to for answers. So it's interesting to see that in this corpus, in these 16 picture books, the adults seem to hold back, seem to be in the background, almost hiding, and they let the children take charge because they are aware of the irony and maybe the burden they're placing on the shoulders of these children, that they have to clean up the mess that these adults make. So yeah, I see the children here as not passive recipients of the adults' teaching. Instead, they are asked to think for themselves, relying on their conscience, something that is forgotten, missing, unheard or maybe already not listened to anymore by the adults, right? So I'd like to end with, what I think is a lovely illustration from one of the book, where the child characters successfully make their own piggy banks. So yeah, the words say, "This is our creation, we made it and we are proud." The children say that. In dominantly prescriptive and instructive books in Indonesia, there's 16 picture books. I think they managed to distinguish themselves by putting more focus on child agency as the child characters navigate their ways in moral dilemmas. So that's all for me. Look forward to having a discussion with you later on in the conference. So these are the titles of the children's books I use as my corpus. They can be accessed for free from this website, from KPK website. And this is my reference. Thank you very much. Look forward to meeting you in the conference.